I'll go ahead and introduce our next storyteller, Io Reed. Io's culinary traditions come from North Carolina, but her tastes and her perspectives have changed after living in 11 different countries all over the world. Now, there's not enough time for her to tell us all the stories from all 11 countries, but she's being kind enough to share a short selection called It's an Acquired Taste.
My name is Io Reed, and I'm really passionate about cooking. I even cook in my sleep. And I think if I'm lucky enough to get to heaven, I'll have a frying pan in my hand. And I've lived in 11 different countries. In Africa, I've lived in Mauritania, Senegal, I have to look, Senegal, Kenya, South Africa, Swaziland, Zambia. If anybody had been to any of these countries, just what do you think? Kenya, Zambia, Swaziland. And it's been really wonderful. I've lived in also Asia. I've lived in Sri Lanka and Japan. And although I never ever imagined that I would wind up in Europe, I did. You know, I guess Europe decided they weren't going to be left out of the picture. So Russia squeezed in, Bosnia, and Finland. So, in short, I've had a fantastic culinary experience. And I've loved and cherished every minute of it. It's been absolutely wonderful. The most amazing friendships have bloomed over steaming pots of curry and spicy African stews, making rice balls in Japan, and making savory coffee breads in Finland. And so today's topic, an acquired taste. You wonder, where does an acquired taste come from? Is it embedded in our DNA? Or is it something that we develop as we go through life's journey, one piece to another piece? Or does it hold the secrets for why we embrace certain foods and reject others? My beginnings in cooking were very humble, and I've always cooked, except for a short period of time when I was a collector of kindling. Now, for you people who don't know what kindling is, you city people, kindling is the dry wood and branches that fall on the ground. And my job was to pick this up. And I had a sack, and I knew how to select the very dry pieces because that's what we used to start the fire with. Now, this was not work that was busy work for a 4 or 5-year-old. My grandmother didn't give out busy work. Everything was serious. And you were never too young to work. Everybody was working. And so, if that kindling box wasn't filled, I was not a very popular person in the house. Because everybody was cold. And that didn't go down that way. My grandmother had everybody working. You couldn't imagine it. You know, my grandmother even took the pillows away from the babies that we used to prop their bottles on, When they were 6 months old, she said, hold their own bottle. You hold your own. Nobody's gonna hold your bottle for you. Okay? So that was the kind of tradition I came from. And after a year or so, I graduated to kitchen duties. And I was given a small box, and I put that box against the stove, and my title became stirrer of the pots. And I stirred the grits, and I stirred the oatmeal, and I stirred the gravy, and I made sure nothing burned. That was my job, stirring the pots. Well, coming from this humble background with cooking, there were a lot of things that arrived on my plate at the table that I gave a pass, especially liver and those intestine dishes that they put in front of you. No, I didn't want that. And I made a vow one day at the table that when I grew up, and as soon as I was able to spell A-B-L-E, able, none of that stuff was ever going to pass my plate again. So that was my beginning. That's where everything started. And I remember there was a shortcut I used to take going to school. I would walk down this old dirt road, and I'd pass a block of houses that were old and weather-beaten, and they just begged to be painted. And I could smell the smoke coming from the chimneys. And my nose would lead me down that path. I still know the way. You never, ever leave your beginnings. And food would be cooking on the back of the stove, and I could smell it. And it was cooking at a snail's pace, because that's how we cooked everything, at a snail's pace. And I could smell the collard greens and the cabbage cooking, and they would be simmering in smoked meat. Now, by the time these vegetables had cooked, 5 or 6 hours, they would just slide down your throat. You didn't have to chew anything. And somehow it was the vegetables I really did not like. The meat, it was okay. The meat, the old folks really loved it, because especially those old folks that didn't have teeth, they could just suck it off the bone. Okay? But I really didn't like the stuff. And people in the South, they have no reservations about telling you how they like their food. Everything is cooked to death. Everything. And where I came from, there were 2 rules for cooking things right. You cooked it on down. Okay? The first rule for cooking anything according to Southern cooks was you cooked everything well done, and then you cooked it some more. The second rule was, whenever possible, It was. Now, I've eaten my share of drop down dead cuisine and overcooked memories. And there is something about the cuisine that has a hold on me. And somehow, I really treasure the love and the care that those cooks poured over the pots. And I can't separate myself from those memories. It would be fair to say that I'm more attached to the memories than the cuisine. And that's the thing about your roots when you look at where you came from with cooking. I think about this quite often, about how I've traveled and how I've evolved. Now, you might ask me, what is it in Southern cooking that really stands out? Because so far I've given the food a pretty bad rap. I really have. And if you ask me what really stands out in Southern cooking, in North Carolina cooking, the corner that I came from, I would have to say North Carolina barbecues and desserts are among America's best. And this is where I think you see the pride of Southern cooking. And this is where I think our Southern cooks really outdo themselves. And I really enjoy going back home. It's always good to go back home. And we like to sit on the porch and rock and swing. And we like to sip sweet tea. You know sweet tea? It's good stuff. Even McDonald's sells it now. We like to sip sweet tea. That's sort of the home wine. And you sip sweet tea and you swing. And you talk. And it's so good to mingle with friends and enjoy yourself. These are the simple things about Southern living that you really love. And when you're departing, it's the hugs and the kisses you smother with them. And they will bless your heart 10 or 20 times. That old phrase, oh, bless your heart, bless your heart. But they always add, bless your heart. But when you're leaving, it's always, bless your heart for coming. Bless your heart for coming. And this is really Southern hospitality at its best. And I have a hard time thinking about Southern cuisine without remembering a special friend of mine. He was the nicest man from Alabama, and he was married to this Indonesian woman. And he would start begging for those overcooked memories. And she would come over my house, she would talk to me, pick my head for recipes. And one day we were sitting in the kitchen and she said, you know, I really can't stand the stuff. It's so smushy. It just won't go down. I just can't take it. And she said, and God knows I tried, but I just can't take it. And at that moment, I looked at her, and I looked her square in the face, and I said, honey, it's an acquired taste.